All right. Everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Logicon's podcast series. We mostly talk about integrations, software development, and some interesting challenges the industry is facing these days. And today we have a very special guest, Mathew Randal, who is the head of software development and integrations at Aston Martin. Myself, Murad, I'm Logicon's CEO, and we have Adil over here, who is Logicon's CTO. We would definitely start this podcast interview from a little bit of introduction and getting to know Mathew. So, Mathew, if you could tell the audience a little bit, not just about yourself, but firstly, we like starting off with how did your career start and what brought you to where you are in today's world?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew Harriet Randall. As Mara has already said, I am head of software development and integration within Aston Martin. I'm also a non-executive director at Racing Pride. My career very much started out as by luck, I think. My degree was very much in aeronautical engineering, very much always like more practical sides of my education. But I think halfway through my course, I really wanted to get into IT and software development. I think it came to that one of those things that and during an engineering course, you always have a level of software development to try and get you into doing any form of automation and that sort of thing. And as you can probably imagine, most engineers aren't particularly au fait with how programming works. So you effectively had 150, students during my course and there was probably two answers, mine and somebody else's. So I think from that point in time, I really wanted to get into. So from there, I did summer jobs working for software vendors, and then when I left university, I actually joined Aston Martin as a maternity leave cover. And while I was there, there was a opportunity to become a junior developer, which I took. I've got, and since then I have been at Aston Martin for 16 years now. So quite a fair while through junior developer,
Yeah.
developer, senior developer, solution architect to head of as I am now.
Nice, nice, excellent, excellent. Who says luck doesn't favor the one with passion, right? That's absolutely amazing. That's great. All right. So, very would be very interesting to know, Mathew. First question that we would like to ask you: how do you think integrations overall, regardless of any industry, they influence customer experiences, and how are they playing an important role in the element of personalization and user personification?
I think whenever you ask these sorts of questions to do with integration, I think the key behind all of this is data. I'm very much a data person as well. I do look after the current data team within Aston Martin as well. And a key part of personalization is making sure that you are surfacing information to either your customers or even to your own internal staff, if that's who it is your customers are, in a way that is readily understandable for them. So make sure that you are receiving the information quickly and readily through an integration, but also to the data points that you're likely to have. Most systems nowadays aren't in isolation. You won't have all the personalized information. So take it from a public website. The public website, if you go to it, is getting information from Google. It's going to get information from Bing. It's going to get from your internal systems about who you are as a person to try and push those personalizations to you. And you have the same sort of aspects internally as well. If you are a person within finance, you don't want to be seeing the same personalized applications if you are an engineer or if you are working in sales. You want to see that information to get you to what you want quickly as fast as possible. So integration needs to be able to have that interoperability to be able to pull all that information into a single location as quickly as possible, but also smoothly as well. A big part of an integrations job is to not only be fast, but also be callable by multiple data sources. Google has become so big, not just because it is a very good search engine and very good at surfacing ads. But because it has all those abilities to be able to have those APIs that to be able to pull out, where would we be without Google Maps? Google Maps exists on almost every website around the world because of its API landscape.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And data being king, speaks a lot for itself, especially when it comes to user experiences. Us at Logicon, I mean, we're always speaking out as loud as possible about better customer experiences, and we know the importance and right, faster, quicker availability of data, how much that role has to play for enhancing those customer experiences. So, absolutely, there's a spot on with the experience side.
And given your depth of experience that you have, like what would you say is the biggest reasons of failures among large scale integrations that I have? Obviously, like you have 16 years of experience in that. So throughout your career, what have you noticed? Like what would you say is the biggest reason of failures among integrations?
Generally speaking, people forgetting that they need to build the integrations. It's,
That's a good one.
any former developer will tell you, well, why don't you think about the reports or think about the integrations? It's the last thing's like, what do you mean it doesn't just work? No, no, no. It needs to be thought out, it needs to be built out. But I think a big part of it is also not necessarily just that, it's the forethought as well. So
Hmm.
making sure that you are building for the future. So don't build those one-off integrations. Make sure that they are reusable. So I think a big part of those failures is building it as a developer going, I am going to build this per the spec rather than thinking, oh, this might be reused. Go back to my Google example. They
Hmm.
wrote all their APIs for themselves, but then they surfaced that for then to monetize.
Right.
Right.
Nice.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Awesome. And in your experience, Matthew, what do you think is harder? Is it integrating the cutting edge technologies for your use cases, or is it aligning the people and team behind it? Or is it a blend of both?
So I mean, you can probably tell from my previous question, its answer to that one. It is people, always people.
Mhm.
Um, I think anybody who knows me will very much know that I say to my team and I say to everybody else as well, is that it's people that you need to change. Technology is rarely an issue now,
Hmm.
very rarely. Technology has advanced so much further that you can do so much more unless you are on that precipice, which 99% of us will never be because we're not in a field that will need to hit that 99, that 1%. So I think it is very much people's habits, being able to change people to be able to get to near cutting edge. You
Right.
know,
Right.
that's where you want to get to for majority of industries. And if you don't have the ability to, for example, upscale and upskill your teams, as well as being able to change your integrations, update them. You don't want to completely rewrite them, but you do want to modernize every few years to make sure it's still working going back. So if you haven't got the people that wants to say, let's go and do that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your audience have probably heard the amount of times of, oh, but it's working.
Correct.
We
Yeah.
don't need to touch
That's
it.
right.
As long as it works, don't touch it. How they work with code.
Yeah, don't touch it. Don't touch it. I mean, that's exactly what happened when I started at Aston Martin. I had this work, I had this like PC, and it was like one of these, you know, thing CRT monitor on the top of it. And I turned up. I was like, I'm turned up to Aston Martin. What is this? I mean, it works, doesn't it? I'm like, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that was actually some form of prank from the senior devs at the time. Yeah, give them a CRT monitor, see how they deal.
That's
Um,
funny. It's so important. Like you're very spot on because a majority of integrations that we're involved with the customers that we work with, organizational behavior has a lot to do with it. Not just with how people are thinking, but when you introduce integrations, whether it's for external use, whether it's for internal use, at the end, it's the people that get impacted, especially the internal changes. And it's really interesting over these past years, we incorporated this change management and change activation strategies along with our integration offerings because that's so hand in hand when it comes to implementing these for better customer experiences. And spot on with, of course, how much it's important for individuals within an organization, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all these, I think again the buzzword AI. The how do you think like that landscape has changed in terms of the integration side with the introduction of AI agents? And it's been a big word lately in the last month. So how do you think that has changed the landscape for the integration side of things?
So for me, and anybody who's heard me talk will probably have heard this before, but a really key thing for me is not the AI agents in of itself. A lot of people are talking about, oh, what it can do for the end user. I
Hmm.
often don't look at that when it comes to integration. I can't think of it how strong it can become for the developer, but also the person looking to consume it. The amount of AI technology that can use to try and make you faster to market, to better speed up, because we're used to, since I don't know, Visual Studio 2012, 2008 sort of
Yeah.
thing with getting better and better in IntelliSense, right? A lot of where you started coming from Objective-C to where we are now, a lot of that comes down to speed of development. And big part of that is because computers have got better, right? You have the ability to be a little bit more lax because of how much better the internet is, how much bigger that is. And AI very much is triggering a lot of that sort of aspect. And
Hmm.
that sort of like speed is going, can I please write this stub? Write that in plain English, and that builds it out. That allows a wider pool set of people to be able to start to utilize integration to better speed up processes. Testing
Hmm.
as well, such an important part. People are used to using things like Cucumber to be able to write things in simple words into English,
Hmm.
whereas you want to be able to do that and use AI to be able to speed that up, and discoverability as well. I'll go back to my Google example. Back then, you needed to find it, you need to know what you were looking for. Now, if you have a library, as we do, what we utilize MuleSoft and trying to get all of that within our exchange. And what's really nice about that is as we start adding more and more elements of discoverability using agents for that, I want to be able to enter this sort of information for a customer. Here you go, try using these. I think that in itself is that speed and ease of use, not necessarily the integration that the customer will be seeing. A lot of that technology will be coming again into the system that you're calling, that you're integrating with. So I
Hmm.
think being
Yeah.
able to service an agent within case management, for example, and then being able to service that to thousands of different locations,
Hmm.
Slack, be that in Zoom, be that on a website, whatever things like that. I think that's where the power comes in.
Hmm. Oh, very nicely put.
So
Very
you would
nice.
be developer focused first, I'd say, when it comes to agents.
I think so. I think it
Hmm.
it again this will be partly down to my experience on different items. A lot of the agents in itself, there's two really key things that I see is development and things like speeding up your internal stuff
Hmm.
rather than customers.
Right.
Most customers at the moment, I would say, unless you're in a tech industry and that's what you love,
Mhm.
don't don't really understand it well enough. You need to start bridging that gap to get people used to it. People are too
Hmm.
used to agents going, "Oh, it's a chatbot."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, they're
Yes.
getting a lot better. I mean, yesterday I contacted Deliveroo for an order, for example. Had a chatbot to begin with. I'm sure there's some form of AI on there now. They are a tech company by and large, but it was pretty poor. And eventually I got sent to an actual agent.
Oh,
Um, so it it's not it's not there yet enough for you to be able to go, yes, that's going to take over. But what it can do is speed up your process, and that's what it should be doing. It shouldn't be replacing, it should be
right.
speeding up, being able to leverage what you can do as a human. It's empowering human ability, not replacing it.
Absolutely. And the speeding up starts from the bedrock, which is the implementation layer, the development layer. And one of the things that I mean, we love interviewing technical people specifically is because then they also take the side of the development teams that, hey, you want to be focusing on this layer first if you want to be able to enhance your agent-based experiences. I mean, everyone's going to talk about, yes, at the front business layer, but yes, thank you for rooting for the developer community.
Yeah. Everyone else is trying to replace us.
So that's
Yeah, well, and I think what it allows us to do is eventually, and I know that some of my devs think the same way, and I know I did as well. Is like as you start going through new technology, you're like, oh, you're going to replace me. You don't ever replace us. You change the way you think. You
exactly.
could replace the person if the person, again, going back to your people question, if the person in question doesn't want to learn the new technology.
Hmm.
Over the 15 years I was developing, or for 13, 14 I was developer, I haven't developed properly for a while. Is I think I changed our coding standards and our technology based on it 4 or 5 times. I think. And that was all just in Microsoft technology, let alone branching out to multiple different items. The way that you talk to a database, I think I changed that 3 or 4 times with direct calls, with SQL store procedures, with, entity diagrams and all that sort of stuff. Even though those sort of things have changed. When entity framework came out, people were like, oh, you're replacing a DBA. What?
Mm.
There's no way.
Right. Nice, nice. So, Matthew, in your experience, what has been the most interesting story around the biggest integration challenge you had to face? And if you want to share, how were you able to resolve that?
I think the biggest integration challenge that I've probably ever had is I'm going to fall back on it, people again, is we were doing a massive change to our ERP at the time, and we were trying to surface our change to our financials. A big part of what we were trying to do is speed up basically our month end, quarter end, year end processes. So have integrations directly to the back end systems to be able to do analytics, to be able to create a lot of the reports, but to give them the information that they needed at the time, rather than having to go and find it. Building up all those Excel VB macros and everything like that. That used to take, at a company I worked at previously, and because it was a small company, so it took them like 20, 25, days to produce basically their month end, which was fine because at the end of the day, they got what they needed to better see what it was. But then they basically have to start again. A big part of the change was to try and reduce that time.
Hmm.
And the person whose job it was to produce basically that book, those set of spreadsheets or whatever, was like, well, you're going to replace me. Well, no, what it is going to mean is that you can actually start analyzing that information as fast as possible rather than just producing it. They still work for that company now, like 17 years on. But that 25 days is now a day.
Wow, that's
So,
so.
and I think it's a massive, massive shift. And I think that is very much where integrations can come in and where you hit the challenges is when you start going, okay, I'm building out this and it's changing that person's perception of what it is that they're trying to do
Right.
and being able to say, I want to get that information. I'll answer it again. This the second one. Again, it's kind of people driven. Again, technology very rarely takes into account.
I think
But
that's
this is
yeah.
yeah. But this example is technology moving on.
Hmm.
So back in 2014, I think 2014, 2015, I changed all of our coding standards from using web services to using RESTful APIs.
Hmm. Yeah.
Back then, it wasn't massively well known as a technology. And attempting to try and explain to somebody what a JSON format was comparatively to using an XML format and things like that took a large period of time.
Mm.
And it was frustrating for me because I'm like, this is going to be the future. I know it's going to be the future. Fortunately, I was right, they were wrong. But we got to the point of going through. This is what I need. We built up pre-Swagger, so we built up our own set of diagrams and stuff like that of how to use it. They're like, how do I use this? And it took one of our developers like weeks every single time we'd explain to a new third party to utilize these. So that goes back to what I was talking about with AI, is that discoverability and that use case of how to use your systems. I think being able to move from that point of being able to explain how much you need to be able to do to integrate and how simple it is, but to somebody who just fundamentally has never seen it before. And that happens every single time that you change it from one type of integration to another.
Right, right. I love it. I mean, because it starts from the people. I think that's some of the best insights from this conversation. Again, everything revolves around people, especially when you're in the integration realm. Because at the end, the goal of solid integrations is to enhance experiences. And regardless of whatever challenge it's going to be, the challenge, of course, starts from the people, because technology is not going to be that big of an issue when we're dealing with these things. That's good. And yeah, Adil, you want to ask?
Yeah, I think I'm good to go. That's
Oh,
right.
awesome. And one definite thing that I love asking in these podcast interviews, usually one of our closure questions is,
Your favorite one.
yeah, always my favorite, because I have a lot of interesting answers from everyone when we talk to them about this. So what would be, Mathew, your, let's say, bold prediction across a combination of AI, automated agents, and integrations? It could be in any industry. You could talk about the automotive industry, but your bold prediction for the next 20 years, where do you see it's going to be going after 20 years?
I think it's going to go to standard written English. I think agents in itself is going to be the calling language.
Hmm.
So a lot of the behind the scenes is going to be very similar as it is now. I mean, generally speaking, behind the scenes, it's the same as it always has been, for 30, 40, 50 years. The way you write it is slightly differently. But as you start developing more and more in a more robust manner, a lot of developers I know that come in that start working on something like Salesforce, for example, which is very much a high level, development cycle. If you attempt to try and explain to them, three-tiered architecture and things like that, they have no idea what you're talking about because they fundamentally understand how their job works. They don't need to know because they haven't needed to.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of that will come down to more AI type agents and prompt building, as well as if you're calling an AI or an integration, you are just calling it as you would do into a chatbot. So asking for that information get passed back. We're already there partly when you're talking about agents, but integrations will also start getting to those points. You're going to have these large, data lakes with your information that has all of the discoverability that you'd expect of it. It's going to, have that business context to be able to know what it is that you're asking of it.
So
So that when you ask those integrations, that information is coming back quickly rather than having to go, you know, get customer by X. You're
right,
not
correct.
needing to call that. You were just saying, I want to get Murad Hassan information for this. There you go.
There you
That
go.
will then be interpreted by the software system that you're pushing into, and then going, there you go, surface that onto a screen. I think that's very much the direction that we will be eventually going. We're definitely not there yet.
Of
And the
course.
big problem with it is going to be making sure that business context is there. Because building that out is still a large undertaking, especially for a organization like I work in. It's a 111-year-old company. That's a lot of data.
Yeah, of course.
You can
And
imagine.
with the blend of everything as a bold prediction that would this line sum it up nicely, that you're seeing technology becoming more human savvy in this angle?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
That's our company's new tagline. So I just wanted to get it validated from
Oh,
you.
very nice. Very nice. Uh,
Yeah, should be spot on, right? And Matthew, would
but
you
I mean, it's true.
It is, right? And because we're always talking about experiencing, elevating them, and making sure that, technology is able to assist human beings on that. So why not human savvy? Why not, technology helping on that side? So with all this bold prediction and all that you said, Mathew, would you say the answer to my next question might be within this, but I'd like to hear this from you. What is the kind of work you want to be remembered for in the next 20, 30 years, however long maybe?
So I think I'll answer that in a way that I always tell all junior developers, any developer that I have start coming into my organization, in the sense that I don't want to be remembered as that person who built that system. I want to be remembered by the fact that a system works and is also changeable by the next person. So what I tell all my developers and every new person that comes into my business and into my team is don't ever develop for yourself. Don't even develop for the system to work, ironically. Develop for the next person who is going to come across your code and have to work with it. Be that with integration, be that having to change the landscape. And you never know, that might be you in 6 months when you don't know what you did 6 months ago. You should always be building that out. I don't want to be a situation where I retire and somebody goes, "Ah, Mathew Harrett, they built that thing. We have no idea what to do with it. It's that mainframe computer in the back that nobody can turn off."
Right.
I don't ever want that.
Nice. Adil, I
Beautiful.
think Mathew helped us figure out some more taglines for the internal team. So
Yes. I was just noticing that. Very good. Very
that's awesome. Mathew, thank you so
awesome.
much. This has been incredible. And once again, we really thank you and appreciate your time. And I hope the audience, everyone listening to this and reading this, is going to be finding some very useful insights from this valuable session. And
Sure.
well, we'll definitely be posting this as soon as possible. And I'm sure everyone's going to value from it.